What's going on? So I just bought this microphone, so I guess I got to make a podcast, right? By the way, I'm way too much of a perfectionist to be speaking like this. I'll start recording and then I'll say mispronounce one word and then I'll restart. You know what? I'm not going to do that though this time. I'm just going to do it in one take, off the cuff. Yeah, so I can't guarantee that this is worth listening to, but let's just do it. Anyways, this was a really heavy week because a few days ago, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And the day before that, the footage of Iryna Zaruska's brutal stabbing and murder on a public bus in Charlotte was released. I was at work when that was released, and that popped up on my feed. I watched it, and it was traumatizing. I was disturbed. I wouldn't recommend anybody watch that. But at the same time, I do feel like people need to know the reality of what's happening and the gravity of inaction. Because the thing is, this murder was completely preventable. The person who did this had 14 prior arrests, including violent convictions for violent crimes and a history of mental illness, schizophrenia. They were on the streets, sputtering, saying nonsense. The mother tried to commit him to a mental hospital and it was rejected. I think there was one hospital that accepted him for 14 days and then released him because apparently he's not a danger. And this guy was just completely out of his mind. And it's just, we need to treat these mental health people. And if they're a risk to society, we need to get them off the streets and give them the care they need. Otherwise, you're essentially just counting down the days until they inevitably hurt somebody. And this is, again, it's completely preventable. And like, how many strikes do you get? Like 14 prior arrests? That's absurd. If I make one or two mistakes at work, I'm getting out. 14 prior arrests. And we need to stop prioritizing the safety or prioritizing the criminals over innocent people. This was a Ukrainian refugee. This didn't have to happen. And then also after he did it, he said something like, "I got that white girl." So it was a hate crime too. I mean, and like, you're not allowed to talk about it when there's racism against white people. It's almost like you're not allowed to talk about it. But if you reverse the races, it'd be national news, or it'd be a much bigger story. I think there's this hypocrisy there. I think we need to be allowed to talk about these things. It doesn't mean that justifies racism or anything. But if there is a reality, then you should be allowed to talk about it. And I would love to talk more about this, but I know that I can't because you're not allowed to. You could just get canceled. Even if you're just speaking facts, you're not allowed to do that in the society because of the cancel culture, which now the pendulum is swinging the other way around, particularly with the Charlie Kirk assassination. But anyways, just to close on the Iryna Zaruska thing. Our criminal justice system needs to reform criminals. The mother of the murderer said that after he served it was like a 5 or 6 year prison sentence for armed robbery. The mother said that he became like crazier, more violent, more harder, yelling, slamming doors, saying more concerning things. And so the mother was really concerned and wanted him committed to a mental hospital, which she wasn't able to achieve. So it's completely unacceptable. These people need to be off the streets and reformed. The way our criminal justice system works, it hardens criminals. I mean, can you imagine being locked up in a concrete building around other violent murderers? Like, that's literally, that's going to have the opposite effect of reform. That's literally going to harden you even more. It's crazy. Okay, so here's a crazy idea, super politically incorrect to say. What if we took violent criminals and instead of placing them in these concrete jail cells surrounded by other violent criminals, where you can't drop the soap, right? What if instead of that, we put them on farms? We put them in the countryside on farms where they could do honest, meaningful manual labor, like agriculture, farming, maybe throw in some military training there. I don't know. I'm no whatever criminal justice expert, but to me, that sounds like it would have a better possibility of reform than Rikers Island. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is with reform, only when somebody is fit, is not a danger to society, should they be released back. What about that? And by the way, I had this thought too, because I was recently on vacation in Asia. I went to Jeju Island and I was staying by the beach in this really rural neighborhood, just farms around me, carrot farms. And I felt like, oh, this is so peaceful. I think there is something about cities that can be overstimulating for certain people, especially if they have schizophrenia or like certain kind of mental illness, and cause them to go over the edge. And then you tack on being homeless, although many times the mental illness and the homelessness are interlinked, because it seems like this murderer could have lived with his mom, but he chose to live on the streets. And that's what just bothered me the most about this, is that it's completely preventable. And then also the media suppressed this story until the footage was released, and then it's this big deal. But yeah, so that really bothered me. And then now on to the Charlie Kirk assassination. So yeah, I don't honestly this is just like, this hit hard as well. I wouldn't say like I was a big follower of his content or anything, or a big consumer. Like I agree with some of the stuff he says, some stuff I don't agree with, but for somebody who devoted his life to talking to people, to being open to talking to anyone, to having a public microphone where anybody, regardless of your views, could come up and publicly debate him. So for somebody so willing to talk to the other side and have an honest, healthy debate, to be targeted and killed like that is just infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. I mean, I think Bernie Sanders made a video message that I think said it well, that if you have to resort to violence, you're a coward, because that means that you couldn't convince them with words. So you have to resort to force. I mean, it's terrible. And also it's just, what annoys me as well is that, I think the far left anti-fascist, like radical extreme, I feel like are the biggest hypocrites, or massive hypocrites, because these people are the ones who have been imposing these authoritarian things like cancel culture. During COVID lockdowns, for example, you weren't allowed to question anything. These were the people who advocated for the extreme lockdowns, which is very authoritarian, and the forced vaccines and all of that stuff. And yeah, the cancel culture, the political correctness, all of that, like forcing you to like put your pronouns everywhere, and getting you fired for like a random comment where the intention wasn't bad, but you're offended and stuff like that. It's just that's authoritarian. You can't claim you're anti-fascist if you're the one advocating for that stuff. So yeah, it's just disturbing. One thing I will say, and I know it's really not the best timing to say, it's just my personal view. I'm not politicizing anything. I'm just being completely honest. I think it's way too easy to get a gun in the US. Maybe that wouldn't have prevented this. I don't know. But either way, it's just ridiculous how many mass shootings we have in the US. We have by far way more gun deaths than any other country on earth. It shouldn't be this easy to get a gun. And many times these people who get these guns and commit these murders have kind of a similar profile, maybe a history of mental illness. There's a certain age, we got to have higher standards for this. And otherwise this stuff is just going to continue to happen, because here's the thing, like even if most people are good and level-headed, there's always going to be that 1% that's off the rails. And I don't think the rest of society should have to suffer because of that 1%. Another thing I will say about this is apparently a former high school classmate of the murderer of Charlie Kirk posted a 1-minute video, just a selfie video, where he said that if he had to describe the murderer during the time in college, he would say that he was basically a Reddit kid. And this really, wow, this is, so I've been saying for years about how toxic Reddit is. And this is an issue I feel particularly strongly about because I started using Reddit in 2012. Back then, it was actually fine. It was, you would actually see both sides, and the most informative messages or comments would get upvoted to the top. But I slowly watched it fall downhill. It got overrun by memes, and then the downvote button became a disagree button, and then the comments just became shorter and less substantial, more just one-line puns. And so what you have now is essentially the whole comment section will be just one side, which is this radical left side, just painting one narrative, and all just, but not even in an informative way. It's just like really sarcastic, shallow, low substance comments, all just like piggybacking off of each other. And so when you see this, if you don't really have strong critical thinking abilities like most developing young adolescents lack, then it's easy to see this and get radicalized to the left, to one perspective. And by the way, it used to be that at least, if it's any consolation, there were really right-wing subreddits as well, which like the Donald, which arguably was responsible for Trump getting elected in 2017. But since then, these subreddits have been shut down. So this website, for the most part, particularly the default subreddits, are very much left-leaning, like radical left-leaning, and not in an intelligent way. So I mean, this might sound like a small thing, but kids are growing up on this, and a kid does not have the critical thinking capacity yet to be able to determine the difference and to be able to, and so they're very susceptible to radicalization, which it seems like this murderer was, since he dropped out of university and spent the last 4 years, it sounds like, being terminally online in these internet communities, probably surrounded by all these other people who radicalized him and didn't develop the critical thinking abilities to be able to discern the difference and the difference between right and wrong. And this is the same, by the way, this is the same way that people were radicalized into like terrorism, for example, which I mean, that's another thing. Where I went to a high school in Virginia where a few years after I graduated, there were a few former classmates of mine who were arrested for trying to go to like Afghanistan to join the Taliban, which is insane. And I think the only way that can happen is they must have fallen into some really dark holes on the internet and gotten radicalized. And we really need to be regulating this stuff more. Like, this is not a joke. People die because of this stuff, and the governments really need to be holding these social media companies to a higher standard when it comes to their algorithms. And this isn't I'm not the first person to say this. This whole echo chamber problem was a big issue with the previous elections. Facebook was scrutinized a lot for this, for fostering these echo chambers and whatnot. So I do think maybe things have gotten better since then, but there's still so much room to improve, and there's still not really any regulation when it comes to these companies, X, Facebook, whatever. They can make their algorithms whatever they want. They're not accountable to anything. And as we all know, for-profit companies, their number one priority is profits above all else. So unless the government steps in to say, hey, actually, you need to make sure you're not radicalizing people, it's not going to happen. So yeah, governments need to be holding these sites to a higher standard. We need to take this more seriously because this has real world consequences. I mean, beyond just people dying, we need why wouldn't you want people, this stuff really affects your brain. So why wouldn't you want this to benefit society? And it's also a big reason why I've been very critical of TikTok in the past, because it's like, you had this Chinese owned company creating this like brain rot platform that our entire, like most of our teenagers addicted to and getting their news through. And you want that to be in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party? Like, they don't even feed this fentanyl, this digital fentanyl to their own people. You want that to be in the hands of them. I mean, I know since then, there was the court case and whatnot. To be honest, I don't really know what the status of that is, but I don't think, I think if China is not allowing Facebook and Google and our companies to control their youth and population's attention, then why should we allow the reverse? Doesn't make any sense. Anyways, yeah. So ultimately, I think, we got to be taking these social media algorithms more seriously. We got to like do better with gun control, and we need to stop this radicalization, and also be free to have an honest conversation about the real issues happening in society, which I feel like sometimes it gets suppressed, like with the Iryna thing, until the footage came out. So honestly, this is a pretty sad week. I think maybe it's enough news for me for a while, but anyways, I hope that through all of this, we'll actually take action and implement changes that can help prevent this kind of thing from happening again, so that we can reform criminals, like treat mental illness, but also like protect innocent people and reduce, or like ideally prevent, this kind of radicalization. So that's it. What else? It's a beautiful day in the bay. All right, I'm out. Peace.